Hello there friends, how are we doing today? So over the years there are many different things that I've done. You'll see I've got my piano here, my sheet music, I've got one of my paintings over there on the top of another one, the bottom of another one rather, over my head, and I haven't actually shared very much of this stuff online. It's something that I've always wanted to do. But the truth is, at various stages of my life, I felt like I've spread myself so thin and have not really known which way to turn, to be honest. But back in the day, when I first went down to London, it was in the year 2000. And in person, I used to go out a lot. I used to go to clubs and do loads of dancing, and went to the theatre and art galleries and the cinema. And I really got myself out there, and I went over to Sheffield today in hope that I might find some jeans, but I didn't find any that I liked. So as I told the sales assistant in the farm shop, I said I rather boringly bought socks. But I can understand now, men always ask for socks, and the thing is, these little things get quite exciting as you get older, because it was a particularly nice set of socks that I bought today. But as I was sort of looking at the surroundings, thoughts sort of always popping into my head, all different kinds of things. And there was this phrase that completely took over my mind, saying, "Oh, I used to be so fabulous." And I actually corrected myself. I did a little caveat to the phrase that came into my head, "I used to be so fabulous," for that time, you see? And if you're somebody that's really frightened about getting older, the world can feel like a really bleak place. But I've been watching, it's a very famous sitcom in the UK called Absolutely Fabulous. You might have heard of it. It's got Jennifer Saunders and Joanna Lumley in it. It's really, it's brilliant. Classic British television, really good. And there are quite a few phrases from it that I use. And there's one character she plays an assistant, and she's quite dim, but occasionally she'll be given a real pearl of wisdom as a line. And one of them is the sweet sound passage of time. And I reflected on this actually and thought, well, yes, when I was at university, I wore outrageous clothes and I went clubbing, and I was all about getting the attention from as many people as possible. And there was lots of love and adoration and being noticed, which I realised is something that I craved. But there are ways of going about it that are appropriate and of a time. And back then, that's absolutely what I want to do. Now, I don't have the same desire to be that kind of fabulous. To me, what's really successful and satisfying feeling to me is actually being able to stand up for myself and not give people the rise that they want, not being over dramatic and inflaming things and making mountains out of molehills. I don't crave that anymore. Frankly, what I crave now is to make huge sums of money, helping as many people as possible, so that in the village that I've moved back to recently, where I spent much of my childhood, that I can buy back my family home, that I can have that wonderful space all for myself to decorate, to alter, to inhabit in the way that I truly desire. That to me is fabulous now. And the last few weeks actually, I felt far more on that path, because I'm making things as simple as possible. And one of the ways that I have definitely learnt over the years, over the last 20 or 30 years, that I'm really putting into practice now, is putting everything in its place. And much of what we can put in its right and proper place is the version of ourselves that we were 20, 30 years ago, that we were 10 years ago, that we were 5 years ago, or maybe even that we were 6 months ago or a year. And what I'm feeling is a sense of excitement and vitality about life, but not in the frenzied and drama-filled way that I used to do. Because when I actually think about the version of Martin who was dancing in clubs, I did have, and these were in London, so these were big clubs in front of enormous crowds, and often I was put in the DJ stand to dance in front of everybody. There was one time, it doesn't actually exist, the club anymore, but it's called the London Hippodrome. Massive club. It's now a casino, I think. And Magic Mike has played there, you know, huge auditorium, multiple layers, probably thousands of people in there. There was this one time that I was dancing. It's kind of got the main DJ stand and then two flanking wings at the side. And I was dancing by the railings on one of these, you know, behind the railings of one of these wings. And all of the lights, this is God's honest truth, all of the lights went down and there was one spotlight on me. And this was at the end of a particular song. But then another song kicked in after about a minute or two. And I just kept on dancing. And for that entire song, the whole place was transfixed on me. And it's a fantastic memory. But the point is, I needed that back then. The difference now is that I don't need it. I don't even really want that level of involvement with other people. What's really satisfying to me is being my own man, being more resolute, being more productive, and not needing that massive amount of attention and approval from other people. So I can put that whole period of my life to rest. But what was really interesting is I had this really vivid and kind of poignant dream last night. And it involves a very famous UK podcaster. And he hosts the Modern Wisdom podcast. His name is Chris Williamson. And he is transcendently good looking. He's incredibly good looking. I mean, model-esque. And he did reality TV, and then he worked funnily enough, in nightclubs. But he started this podcast, and I remember an exchange, a small comment exchange that he and I had. And I discovered I was very good for you. I did rummage through, and I actually forgot that I made the comment on a different YouTube channel from this one. But I found the comment. And it was actually from 4 years ago. This is the thing. I mean, I thought, maybe that's about 2 or 3 years ago, but no, more than 4 years ago, in fact. And it was at the time that his channel was called Modern Wisdom. And he did a big video explaining that he was going to change the name of the channel to Chris Williamson, and that he was talking about all the different things that he was going to do from that point onwards and everything. And I remember putting down the comment that I thought, saying that I'd loved following him, and I did religiously watch his podcast, haven't watched it for ages, but that I'd really enjoyed watching it, that I thought it was a really bold and brave move. And his reply to it got quite a few likes at the time, that comment of mine. His reply was, "Oh, thanks, man. You're one of the OGs." Original guys, you know? And I remember at the time, actually, I was working with a different therapist. And I remember relating this story to the therapist and said, why do you need to be one of the one of the guys kind of thing. And I can sort of see what he meant. Why do you need the approval? But there was sort of it was sort of start of the beginning of sort of differences, because he was a bit of a cynic, that guy, and ultimately he started interrupting me all the time in my sessions. So I stopped seeing that particular therapist. He was useful for a little while. But in this dream, and this is going to sound really, really weird, but in the beginning of this dream, Chris, and it sounds really random, but Chris was pouring on my inner thighs. Okay, I had shorts on. On my thighs, he was pouring Worcestershire sauce, and balsamic vinegar, which I know sounds really, really odd. But I use those two things along with other ingredients to marinate the chicken that I have quite a lot of the time during the week. So that's what that was about. And the thing is, I think in the dream, what it meant was sort of waking me up to things and to put things in their right place. You know, it was a bit of a wake-up call in the dream. And after that had happened in the dream, I got up and started wandering around the shop where we were. What was really strange is that I don't actually know how tall he is, but he'll be tall, and he'll be tall enough. He was cycling around the shop on one of those little children's bicycles. So his knees are up here, and he was cycling along. And he had headphones on, and so I was trying to say, Chris, and he couldn't hear me. But eventually I caught his attention, and he took the headphones off. And I said, look, I might have been a little bit harsh with you, because the thing is, I haven't watched this podcast for a long time, because quite a lot of the guests that he's had on more recently, now that he's approaching 4 million subscribers on YouTube, and I think hundreds of thousands on Twitter. You know, he's a big name. He's had lots of people on that I'm not interested in watching particular people, and the subject matter has sort of lost interest, you know, for me, lost relevance. And in the dream, he said, well, yeah, but when I explained that I'd been harsh, he said, well, I thought it was because, I thought maybe it was because of a breakup. So there's lots of stuff that's relevant to me about breaking up with my ex-boyfriend, etc. All this kind of stuff. But when I woke up, it left me feeling quite settled about things that I, haven't felt for quite a long time. Because whatever you're experiencing in your life, it feels far more immersive and a bigger deal to you than it will necessarily to other people. And other people can be empathic, they can be understanding, but they won't really know what it feels like. But I've been struggling for quite a long time, quite a few years, which is why I was in a vulnerable position meeting my ex. Really struggling to actually feel like myself, to feel that kind of, I've always been optimistic, but that kind of real zest and joy for life. And I really do feel like things are coming together now, because it's almost a year that I haven't drunk any alcohol. It's just over a year since I broke up with my ex, and having had the opportunity, the space to be able to fully breathe my own air in my new flat, going on the walks that I want to, doing the creative work that I want to, and all of that blooming and blossoming and proliferating again. I do feel like I'm actually living my natural calling. And this is the point. At various stages, you will learn certain things, you'll discard the rest that isn't relevant to you, and you'll keep moving, you'll keep walking your own way. And you'll move closer to the things that really, really matter to you, and you start to embody those things more. And people pick up the cues. It's quite subtle and subliminal. It isn't necessarily immediately obvious, immediately made manifest, but it's a vibe that you give off, and people will resonate with that. And the conversations that I'm starting to have now are more grown up, they are more serious, they are more focused. And I think that's a really fantastic way of starting to actually chart out, you know, what you're actually going to do when you allow yourself to follow your instinctive pace, to follow your instinctive rhythm. And when you start just removing the stuff that isn't working for you, that you're not interested in anymore, peeling off the layers of the onion and getting down to who it is that you really are as a person. And the interesting thing is, I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine from Twitter, whom I'm going to be speaking with tomorrow, along with our other friend, and the mutual friend through whom we actually met, in fact. And we get together quite often now on Google Meets. He was saying, well, one of the things, Martin, I'm getting from your videos, and this was very pleasing to me, but it was a bit of a surprise to hear, but encouraging, was that what he was getting from my YouTube videos is how important it is to be specific, you know, to really just laser focus in on what matters to you, what really resonates with you, who you naturally are as a person. And this friend, Riley, also talked about, posed the question of who have I been all the way through? And that really resonates with me, because tastes change, but your natural character, that's immovable. That is who you are and what you're meant to embody. And the more that you do that, I think the simpler life becomes, and the more obvious it is what you need to do to succeed in whatever it is that you want. So all of this is to say that there are no mistakes. There are different periods to your life in which you do particular things to learn particular things, and everything else is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You don't have to beat yourself up that you should have been doing this, or should have done this more with my YouTube channel. No, every single thing happens in the right order, and you have to trust the process. You have to trust the plan. You just have to trust that whatever good grace is, the universe, the good Lord, whatever it is, has in mind for you the absolute right things, and it presents things as and when you need them in perfectly the right order. You don't need to question that. Follow your feet, follow where your heart leads you, be your own man, and you will win. Thank you very much for watching. See you next video. Ciao for now.